Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a survivor of kidney cancer who lives in Utah with her 2 kids as a single mom and posing coach. She earned her pro card in 2022 at Masters USA's along with the overall title, and she made her pro debut last summer. We have a lot to talk about. I'm excited to get into it with her. So welcome to the show, TANYA JOHANSEN. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's so good to see you.
You too.
This end of it, finally.
I know. It's been a long time coming, but I feel like everything happens with perfect timing. So I'm just glad we get to do this now.
Me too.
So before we get into everything, I have to ask if there's anything you do or think about or a ritual you have before your heel hits the stage.
You know, the stage is terrifying for me, to be completely honest. A lot of girls love it, and but I get so nervous, and so I just try to take a deep breath. And now that I'm a pro, tell myself I'm a pro. I can do this, and let's show them what we got.
Mhm. I love that. So it sounds like it changed when you became a pro. Like maybe there was a bit of a boost in how you
Yeah,
viewed yourself or your ability.
yeah. It kind of was like, okay, I did this, it gave me that acknowledgement that I was searching for personally. So it was nice to have that. We know that once you get to the top of the ladder, then you go right back down and you have to work yourself back up. But I am accepting of the challenge and excited to get my rookie season underway.
Yeah. So was your goal always to go pro?
It was, yeah. And
You
I
knew.
know sorry, if you hear snorting, that's my Frenchie.
I would have assumed it must be a French bulldog if they're
Yeah.
snorting.
Yeah. Um, sorry, what was your question?
Did you always want to go pro? Was that always the goal?
Yes, it was. And I know for some people it's not attainable. And people have to be realistic with that. Thankfully, I was kind of told that it was a possibility. So I went for it and never gave up.
So that's a good topic of discussion. Actually, I want to segue to that. What
Okay.
makes a pro card or who is capable of achieving a pro card versus who's not? And what's that reality check that you're kind of mentioning here?
Yeah. So first of all, you need to make sure you're in the correct division. A lot of females fight their bodies against what they are, how they're naturally built. Um, for some, it's they have to kind of temper down the lower half or really build a certain body part. I have some friends that were in bikini, but maybe should have been wellness, and you have to put your body through so much. So, first, know the correct division and listen to the judges and your coach and do what they say. um,
Mm.
you have to never, ever, ever give up and be willing to put in the effort. And it takes a lot. And it takes a lot more than you think you're capable of. And when you think you're dying, push harder. You can't ever give up. You have to be resilient and um, it that same topic makes me think about when I was going into my pro debut, and life was a shit show, honestly. And it was interesting to see. I confided in a lot of girlfriends, and the amateur ones would say, "Oh, the stage will always be there. Just put the show off, wait till life settles down." Um, and then my pro friends would say, "No, you do the show that you were planning on doing. You push through. You show them what you've got, and that's why they're pros." That just gave me goosebumps. You have to be willing to fight for it no matter what your life entails. And a lot of times we think, at least I did as an amateur for the longest time, you think that pros have it easier. Oh, they have this meal prep company. They don't have to meal prep. They have all the time in the world. Their entire job is bodybuilding, so they can devote all of that to it. And while certain areas might be easier, they still have a lot going on. And I remember doing cardio one time. It was probably almost midnight. I was outside trying to get that last bit in, and I was listening to something about Janet Layug, and her dad had cancer, and they still fight through it. Life doesn't stop for them either. And sometimes as amateurs, we think it does. So you just have to have that relentless attitude to just keep going.
I love those very specific examples that you provided and kind of like that pro versus amateur mentality and what's required in order to go pro. It's not that it's impossible. It's that there's things that need to be adapted mentally and physically in order to be able to achieve that goal. And you
Yes.
said that you've had to be really resilient. And I think this isn't just showcased in your own personal journey with your pro debut, but also even just in your journey to going pro,
Mhm.
because you had multiple varieties of placings. There were ups and downs in that, and I think it was your 6th national show that you got your pro card. So how did you maintain confidence and resilience, or maybe even the desire to continuously push for more at every show, even despite that up and down in placings?
Um, I I think it came a lot down to my coaching. At that time I was with Kim Odo, and he really believed in me and knew that it could be possible. Um, I was also fighting against age because I'm 40 now. I didn't even start bodybuilding until I was 35. Um, so I had some wonderful mentors. Jessica Wilson, she's on Body Bio. She would always tell me, if I can do it, you can. Like, why not? And at that time she was an Olympian too, and seeing her get up on that stage at her age was like, yeah, I can do this, and I'm not going to give up till I do. Um, the year before I went pro, I was at Masters USA's and got second to a girl that crossed over from wellness, which
Oh, wow.
is wellness and bikini glutes. Like, we don't compare. So I
Yeah.
was really, really bummed. And I remember feeling, um, going into it, I thought it was the show. Like, people always say it feels different,
Mm.
and everything felt different. It felt like it was aligning. And then I got second. So I was kind of left feeling like, if this isn't what it feels like, then what is it? What does it feel like? Um, shortly after that, I did a warm up show after, and I won. And then I spoke to Sandy, and she said, "You need to sit out the next 2 shows." I've never sat out a national show.
Huh.
Um, I needed to grow my upper glute. And that really, really stung because I did my first local show, and then I was just on the national circuit from there on out, did every show that the coach said. Um, and sitting out those 2 shows, I I believe I beat both of the girls that won those and went pro within a year. And
Hmm.
so it was like, geez, that could have been me. I beat her before, you know? But I knew that I had to listen to Sandy.
Mhm.
I also kind of felt like maybe she would have, not that they dock you per se, but if I would have shown up and not listened to her, she kind of would have been like, wait a minute,
Yep.
I gave you my advice. I was the head judge. You didn't listen to me.
Mhm.
So I sat out those two shows and then came back for the next one, and that's when I won. And so it was kind of a mental battle having to sit out, but you have to listen to the judges, listen to the feedback, and do what they say because they know best.
Absolutely. And if we're going to ask for feedback, we should be willing to take it. And
Yes.
you certainly did. Now, it's interesting you said you had that feeling that everything was aligning and you didn't get it. Because I literally had written down to ask you if there were times where you were like, I'm going to get it, and then you didn't. Because we don't hear that enough. We hear a lot of the everything felt right and there was a different energy, but we also don't hear when things feel right and then don't actually go that
Yeah.
way.
And it kind of sucks. Like you're like, gosh, I have to learn another lesson. You know, I'm tired of learning lessons. I want to win.
Yeah.
But you just keep going. And when I finally did win Masters USA's and go pro, that one felt even more different. And
Mm.
so you just, no matter what happens, you have to learn the lesson and take in the experience and keep rolling.
Yes. That's a great point too. So what did you do when you sat out those 2 shows to improve on the feedback, and what was your feedback then when you did win your pro card?
It was all glutes, build the glutes. It was always the glutes, which for my case, with all of my shows, uh, they loved everything.
Yeah.
It was, they loved the suit color, the glam, the presentation. I had the back and the shoulders, but it was always the glutes, which at times was hard because it's like, wait a minute, I have all of these, but I'm not going to win because I don't have this. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's a very crucial part that we have. So I just worked my butt off to build, um, and it paid off finally. So, and then when I won, everything was great. Build the glutes some more.
Wow, okay. So you did, and then you of course, you went and you made your pro debut, as you talked about earlier, despite a lot of crazy things going on in your life. So, before we get into those things, I want to hear what you did and what you have done to put on so much muscle, because you've really grown a lot from your beginning of your competing journey to now. So, what do you think are some of the most important things for growing muscle?
You can't be afraid to eat. A lot of girls don't want to lose that leanness that we love and want to hang on to. Um, I honestly, to be completely open, have never reversed properly, which I'm really determined to do that this year because it does set you back. So you can't get too fluffy, but you have to be able to eat enough to gain the muscle and proper coaching. Really, yeah, actually, another thing was I really focused on doing lighter weight and being intentional with the muscle I was working and
Mm,
only engaging that muscle.
mm,
I was training with a friend of mine the other day and we were doing upper body, we were doing lat pull downs, and she was really engaging her traps. And with bikini, they don't ever ask you how much weight you can lift. That doesn't matter. What matters is the muscle that you're wanting to work on is growing. So go really light if you have to. Sometimes on hip thrusts, there will be times where I won't even use any weight on the glute
mhm.
drive. Go really, really slow and isolate that one muscle and just burn the hell out of it.
I agree with that completely. There was a time in my journey where I was just like, I think maybe going through the motions of training, like
Yeah.
checking the boxes. And then I got feedback that I needed to grow everywhere. And I remember that improvement season, like I programmed everything. I took it so light and slow. And like, if I didn't feel the squeezing, like I felt like I had to feel like I was pulling a pin out of the floor if I was squatting, or out of the wall if I was doing a
Yeah.
deadlift, whatever it was, everything I had to engage it. And even sometimes now, like I know I can hip thrust a lot of weight,
Yeah. Yeah.
but when you need to get the engagement, that's what really matters. So it's like there's a benefit to, of course, getting under heavy weight, but there's more benefit if you actually feel the muscles you're trying to use to push that weight working.
Exactly. Yeah. In at the end of last year, I switched coaches. I'm now with Aimee Delgado. Um, Loved Kim. He was amazing. No bad things to say about him. Amy and I are really vibing, and she's been incredible and has really been able to teach me how to engage the glutes, which I don't think I was really doing before, which is why it took me so long, I think, to gain that muscle. Gaining shoulders and back came really easy for me, but the glutes were more difficult, and I was tending to use my lower back when I would lift. So that's why I really focused on lighter and just firing up the glutes and not the back. So,
Yeah, so smart too. Like just like you use the example of the lat pull down. It's easy to focus on the weight we're lifting more than it is to focus on what muscle is actually, what is the intention of the workout.
yeah.
And I think that's a mental shift a lot of athletes can make and feel positive impact
Mhm.
from, is like, what am I actually trying to accomplish in this workout? Are there other things that you would tell like newer competitors or amateurs that you think would benefit them in their journey,
As far as training goes,
or anything with competing?
anything with competing, you have to. Well, let's see, as far as the stage goes, because for me, that's one of the hardest things. You have to do it scared. Just do it. You know, a lot of times we think about all the bad things that can happen. They're not going to like me. They're going to judge me with for this or. But I've been trying to shift my focus and think, what's the best that can happen? What's the
Mm.
best outcome? Well, I could win. I could learn how to do something new. I could make new friends. You know, it's that's one of the things that I have absolutely loved about bodybuilding. And I was actually just talking to my therapist the other day about this. I feel like I found my home. I
Oh,
think it. We have this community of where we all understand each other, and unless you're a competitor, even like your best friend, if they don't compete, they don't really understand unless they go through it. Um, I have I've gained so many good girlfriends through this journey, and some are like 21 and some are 48. And
exactly.
we're great friends, ride or die. And um, I love traveling to shows because I walk in and it's like, oh, these are my people. Like, you don't have to explain anything to them. They understand.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's one thing I've really enjoyed.
So there's going to be people listening who are like, I totally want that, but I don't know how to create that. And like, I know for me, I've made so many friends, just like you said, of all ages through this sport. And I think it helps that I have a platform like this where I've been able to make a lot of those friends, and then also people listen and it connects me. So, and then you go to shows or you have these experiences, or Instagram, even you have all these, I have Instagram friends I've never met in person.
Yes, me too.
Isn't that so? I love that. But what do you recommend if someone's out here listening and they're like, my only form of connection is listening to podcasts or going on Instagram? How do you recommend people actually foster friendships and those valuable relationships that you're talking about where it feels like home?
Yeah. Um, what helped initially for me was, having a team basically, there are some coaches that are just sort of like individuals and it's not like a team atmosphere. So sometimes having the team atmosphere helps. For me, it was kind of like, oh, I have this like instant group that I get to be
Uh-huh.
friends with. Um, you also you have to be vulnerable and willing to open up.
Yeah.
It's this industry, we're expected to be machines, but we're not machines. And it's, we want perfection, but obviously we can't be perfect. Um, you have to sort of just strive for excellence. But the times that I have gained the closest friendships are when I've been the most vulnerable and open and shared with them, yeah, I messed up. I ate a cookie and I shouldn't have. And, you know, then it allows them to be like, oh,
Mhm.
yes, I did that too. I experienced the same thing. It's like the sigh of relief that you're not alone.
Right.
So being willing to share the times that you mess up or the feelings like when you feel like you're inadequate or you don't feel ready and um, being able to share that with another competitor, it really helps to foster that relationship and help it to grow and nurture it and then you can do the fun stuff and text and be like be more encouraging and then yeah it's 11 o'clock at night and let's go do cardio, we can do this and uh,
Yeah.
building each other up that way.
So it's so amazing that your first piece of advice was to be vulnerable. I think that's really valuable because especially in this sport, being looked at like machines, to actually be able to turn that off and say, "Hey, I'm actually human and this is what's going on." It helps other athletes to see that they can be human too, and we're not justifying behaviors that lead to outcomes we're not looking for with our goals, but instead we're creating a space to actually address what's holding
Yeah.
ourselves back from those goals and support each other better.
And you have to, it's good to have that outlet of release. um I've spent many times on the treadmill bawling my eyes out, thinking, I can't do this anymore. This is too hard. So being able to call one of your friends and cry with them and
Yeah.
get that comfort it's really helpful and that's what gets you through sometimes because it is so hard. It's not
Mhm.
you have to it's not an easy sport that it's like yeah, well, I guess I should say a lot of people just give up when it gets hard or
Yeah.
they think, I'm not ready. I'll just push it out to do another show. Um my coach just today actually uh she was ecstatic about my check-in, but then in the same email was like, maybe we should, do you think we should keep pushing or do you want to push the show that we're targeting? And I always listen to my coaches, whatever shows they tell me to do, which I think is a really key thing.
Yeah.
Um, because they know the judging panel, they know, all the ins and outs. So listen to your coach on what shows. Um, but I told her, push me. I'll be ready. If you want me to be ready for that show, I can take it.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to cry on the treadmill.
Exactly, and
That's
know that
what
that's
it
such a blessing too, like, we literally get to do that, and, like,
takes.
that's
Yes,
it's good to feel that, it's good to subject ourselves to those challenges and say
yes.
we're willing and not look at it like a, "This is too hard and I hate my life." It's like a, "This is a blessing, I get to do this," but it is okay to say, "But it's hard."
Yes, yeah, exactly. During one of my hardest moments, one of my best girlfriends told me that prepping is the ultimate self-care. I
Yeah.
came at it with a different perspective that day, and I was so stressed, and I can't eat to like make myself feel better, and she shifted my perspective, and prepping is the ultimate self care. I get to do this for me, and show myself what I'm capable of.
If you've ever struggled in your prep or your improvement season or any transition phase in this sport, you know how valuable it is to have that direct guidance and support, but it's so difficult to find, which is exactly why I created the on-demand mindset coaching platform for competitors. That is only $9.99 per month. How it works is you log into the system and you select what season you're in, and then you're prompted to select a struggle you're facing, and then even more specific struggles branching off of that. And at your fingertips, you will be given direct guidance and support with a PDF resource as well as video trainings. And you have tons of access to years of group coaching calls that you're more than welcome to replay and watch, and you get access to a live group coaching call every single month. So you're not only getting support at your fingertips, but you're also getting an incredible community there to support you along your journey. If this is something you're interested in learning more about and exploring, you can sign up at www.celestial.fit/on-demand and get access to this right away. There are no other join fees or cancel fees, so you can come and go as you please, and you are always welcome to be in the Build More Than Just a Body community.
So true. When I was in school, and of course, I went to school for clinical mental health counseling and psychology. So they're always asking you, well, how will you practice self-care? And I'd always answer, and I'm like, my life is self-care. When you think about bodybuilding, like there's other counselors in the class who are like, oh, I need to start nourishing my body better. I need to start exercising. I need to spend time on my mindset. And I'm like, that's like literally a day in the life of a bodybuilder. You know, if you're present enough too, it's a great space to process. And I imagine you can probably relate to that as well, pushing through to do your pro debut while also going through a custody battle and divorce. So did you find that in that time prep was actually giving you the space you needed to process emotions, or giving you the opportunity to care for yourself where otherwise maybe you wouldn't have been?
Yeah, I do. It was, I think, a blessing in disguise. It showed me that, um, well, I tried to think of it instead of like, oh, I have to deal with these two awful legal battles and, the timing could not be worse. It was, no, I get to do this for myself. I get to show that I am capable of hard work and how determined I am and resilient, and I'm not going to let this bring me down. And I'm going to push forward and succeed. And I am so glad I did. Uh, that this past year has been awful, but also the best year of my entire life. I wouldn't take away any of the hard moments. Because it changes your outlook. When I was 30, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and I kind of had I don't know if you could say it's easy, but I kind of had the easy way because it was just surgery. I didn't have to do chemo or radiation. But the tumor was the size of a cantaloupe. It,
Whoa.
it was
How did you
all very
find it?
fast. I this is funny. I always say my dog saved my life because I was at the vet with her one year getting her well check, and I was like, you know what? I'm taking my dog to get her physical. I should probably go get one.
Yeah.
I did, and then my blood work was off, and they said, okay, well, maybe come back in 2 months. We'll check it again. And so I did, and then it was really off.
Oh,
And within like a 2-week period, it was CT scans and ultrasounds and MRIs and then eventually surgery to remove it. But
you had no
it,
symptoms?
looking back, I had some headaches, and I remember because I always like to face the outside of the bed when I sleep, and there was a period where I literally like put my head on where you put your feet so I could still lay facing the outside, but on the opposite side of my, body,
Mhm.
because it was a little bit painful, but never anything noticeable, and you couldn't see anything. which was odd because the tumor was so big. Um, but definitely everyone go get your physical.
Yeah, that's great advice.
But
Well,
it changes your perspective on life, and everything is an opportunity to grow and learn and choose happiness. You know, we can think about how hard prep is, and I do too. There are definitely moments like where you think this sucks. I don't want to do this.
yeah,
Uh, but to shift the perspective, and it's a blessing, and we learn so much about ourselves and get to achieve the physique that we've dreamt of having. It is possible. You don't have to just dream it. You can do it.
that's right. Wow, there's so much I would like to explore further with you on
Okay.
that regarding your journey through kidney cancer because it happened so fast. And you said, "Oh, I got the easy way out because you just had surgery."
Mm.
But that is a big surgery to have. I don't imagine this was like you wake up and you're good to go. So what was your recovery process like after that, and how did they monitor you following it?
Well, I had 2 kids then. My oldest, my daughter was, see, she was probably 3, and then my son was about 9 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, thankfully, I had family in town, and that lived here to help me because I couldn't pick up my son for a couple weeks at least.
Yeah.
Um, I remember getting up and laying back down for the first week or so, you could hear sloshing because all of my
Mm,
organs were kind of figuring out where they were supposed to go.
interesting.
But, yeah, I just had to kind of be at home and not lift anything, and at that point, I hadn't started bodybuilding, so that
Right.
wasn't, something I had to overcome with that, but, yeah, it was crazy. It's interesting when you don't think you're gonna be alive anymore. It's kind of, I was worried about not seeing my daughter get married and, all those things, but there's a reason for everything, and the past 5 years, I could say since I started bodybuilding, it's been about 4 years, um, a lot of stuff has happened, life's been chaotic, it's been amazing, it's been hell, um, but all the dots connect, and, it's life is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I am grateful for all of the hardships.
Wow. So it sounds like it gave you a lot of perspective. And when that happened, did it affect like how you viewed your kids or how you had maybe even spiritually did it affect you at all?
It did. I think I really learned to just let things roll off my back a lot easier, not take things so seriously. I I do not like to be surrounded by negativity and people that play the victim and throw pity parties because not everyone gets to get old. That's a
Yeah.
gift. And we have to take life as it comes, and if they always say if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes of your energy. uh,
Mhm.
so going into my pro debut last year, I was outside the day before looking through lawyer emails, like proofing them, and for a while it really would affect my energy, and it would um, kind of go into every area of my life, and I had to figure out how to compartmentalize. And right now I'm in the gym and I need to focus on this. And then later I can focus on my kids when they're home from school, or being at work, or, whatever it is. Not letting the environment affect the negative environment affect everything, because it really can, and can affect your health. So environment is crucial.
When did you realize you were living in an environment that was not conducive for your life?
Um, I think I it was always in the back of my mind. Um, I I lived in a lot of fear, and it wasn't until, it was a merry-go-round of the same hill over and over, and it wasn't until I was finally realized, I don't want this for my life anymore. I want to be happy. I don't want to be stressed and upset and angry and feel those awful emotions anymore. Um, so I knew I had to take a stand and
Mm.
be willing to take the leap, which is so, so scary. And a
Yeah.
lot a lot of people don't. And I have friends that are stuck in the same cycle. Um, and even in terms of bodybuilding, a, a coach can be bad for you. It
Right.
isn't ideal for you or your personality or your circumstances. And I didn't experience that. I don't want anyone to take that as that I did, but it can, you have to be willing to take the leap, even though it's uncertain and you don't know what's going to happen. You have to sort of just be like, well, I'll figure it out. It's jump and then figure out how to fly on the way down is my philosophy.
Isn't that right? So you empowered yourself to leave something that obviously was unhealthy for you and creating a environment that wasn't producing your most safe and best and confident, amazing self. Like you weren't able to shine as bright as you're shining now that you've left. And I think that you bring up a really great point, which is it's difficult to leave because of the uncertainty. And I think too, when there's been a lot of time and energy invested or potentially life developed and built, it makes it really difficult to consider what happens if I do leave? Even if the environment's better for me, what is it worth all of this? And so you had to come to the conclusion that it was worth it. But I imagine even through that conclusion, you're free from it now, but to get through all of that, it sounded very taxing, even reviewing paperwork the night before a show.
Yeah, it was I had to I knew I needed to leave the chaos of certainty and experience the chaos of uncertainty, and
Mhm. Wow.
because it wasn't healthy, and really focus on each day as it comes. If we look at the whole staircase, it is so scary and terrifying, and um, just taking a day at a time with prep. Still, I've done 10 shows, I think now, and every time going into prep, it's terrifying. And I think, can I really do this? Like, you get fluffy on your off season, and the thought of getting stage lean again is like you remember all of the hard work and the hours and the feelings of hunger. Um, and I tell myself, I've done this 10 times or however many times it was. I've done it that time. I can do it again.
Yep.
And honestly, sometimes saying it out loud helps, which I never had done this really until like a couple of weeks ago. I was having a rough day and it was kind of right before bed. I remember I was walking up the stairs and literally out loud, I said, Tanya, pull yourself together. You can do it. And hearing the actual voice
Yeah.
was different. I wasn't just thinking it, I heard it out loud. Um, and one thing I've told a couple of friends recently, and I tell myself this all the time, is I've got more in me and I'm going to go find it.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah.
That's really good. And I think you've proven to yourself many times in your journey from what we've already heard. You've proven to yourself that there is more in you and you're capable of finding it and you will pull it out and you will be better for it too.
Yeah.
It's it's a consistent pattern in your life. And I think that's part of like when you affirm yourself, it's good to have that proof too.
Yeah.
And you brought up like, I've done this before, I can do it again. And it's not just proof in bodybuilding, but proof in your life as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Having that proof that you can fall back on with emotionally and psychologically is very helpful moving forward for every time. Because, hopefully someday I can say, I've done this 20 times. I
Yeah.
can the 21st time.
That's exactly right. I think too, you said prep every time is like scary or it's hard to
Yeah.
think about how hard it was. Something I've done, and I remind myself of this when I get in the prep scaries. I'm like, okay, when I was in it, it wasn't really that bad because I progressed into how intense it got, right?
Yeah.
I progressed into all that cardio. I progressed into that little food. I progressed into that amount of leanness and discomfort. So I'll progress again, meaning I'll condition myself in such a way over the next X amount of weeks or months that this will be, it won't feel as intense as my mind's making it out to be when I look at it from like a distance.
Yes. Yep. And our ability to adapt is amazing too. I just got dry needling done this morning, and the first 4 minutes I had it done in my glutes, which I highly recommend. Thank you, Amy, my coach, for telling me to do. It was like instant relief. But the first 4 minutes hurt so bad. And then as it went along, it didn't hurt as much. And when the doctor came back in, I was like, did I adapt to the pain or was it because it got looser? And he was like, it was a combination of both. And a lot of times we can't wait to not have to run up this giant, massive hill. Like
Yeah.
life is always going to be hard. We just get stronger and wiser and more resilient, and it becomes easier because we got stronger.
Exactly. It's like the pain or the emotions or the struggle doesn't necessarily change. We just, our ability to sustain it or face it is stronger. I remember when I was back in the day, I started as a personal trainer. This was like 10 years ago. And I remember learning about Wolf and Davis's law through NASM and like our ability to adapt both
Yeah.
muscularly and our skeletally,
Yes.
skeletor, you know what I mean? See, that tells you I'm like, that's why I don't personal train anymore. Didn't interest me like psychology does.
Yeah.
But anyway, that stood out to me because I was like, this applies to life. We are very adaptable. And
Yes.
I think in order to be adaptable, we have to be mindful because that's how we stay in the present moment. That's how we're able to feel it to its depths. That's how we're able to experience it so much that we learn and we can apply.
Yeah.
And if you're mindful, you're more present in the moment. So you're able to recognize, okay, this is how much time has passed, or this is what I'm experiencing. It's going to continue or it's going to fade. Versus
Yeah.
if you are on autopilot mode, you never face your emotions, you don't give yourself the time to heal or work through things or experience something to the fullest, you won't necessarily get the benefit out of it. And
Mhm.
what I'm hearing from you is that in many of these experiences, you had to learn to not just be, you said, not just be comfortable with like the chaos of what was, but also the chaos of the uncertainty. So you faced that
Mhm.
and you experienced it. What did it teach you? What did you experience so deeply that's now maybe given you more insight for your life?
I think one of the things is that emotions fade or they change and they can change quickly.
Mhm.
Um, feelings of cravings or sadness. If we sometimes we just need to go to sleep. We
Yeah.
we always feel better when we go to sleep. Or go for a walk if you're feeling a craving, like get out of the environment where the food is or something. But when you feel like prep is really hard, feel it, for however long, an hour or two, but then pull yourself out of it.
Mhm.
You have to um, be willing to shift the perspective fairly quickly sometimes,
Yeah.
and not let it sink you down or bring you down for the whole day or even longer. Sometimes prepping is easy and sometimes it's harder. And knowing when you're in that hard time, knowing that tomorrow is going to be a better day,
Yeah.
um, kind of helps you get out of that faster.
I love that. It's a form of acceptance, like you're accepting what is real, which is
Yeah.
the pain will exist, happiness will exist, emotions will come and go. There's ebbs and flows that are natural. Nothing's permanent, really. You have to accept that nothing's permanent.
Yes, exactly.
Not even our physique, right?
All right. Which I was talking to a friend the other day about how clothes like never fit.
Never.
Even when you're like, I'm going back well, I'm kind of like in between my fluffy clothes and my lean clothes. So that's
Uh-huh.
a whole thing. But even once I get into my lean clothes again, they might not fit because my body composition is different from the last time I was lean,
Yep.
which is good actually. We always want to be progressing. I don't ever want to stay the same. If I do, then I'm not putting in the work that I should be. But that can be frustrating at times.
It's so honestly, that's like one of those things about bodybuilding that we don't talk about enough, but it is quite frustrating. Like the other day, I was like, I'm the same weight as I was when I bought these jeans. And then I pull them on, I'm like, they're not fitting the same. It's just
Yeah.
my glutes are bigger. I'm like, this is great. I don't have anything to complain about, but there is that side of it where you're like,
Yeah.
dang. Or like, a sports bra doesn't fit around your lats anymore, and you're like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did a side by side a couple weeks ago of my check-in. It was at 12 weeks from the show I'm doing this year versus 12 weeks from last year. And I weighed like a half a pound different, completely different physique,
uh-huh.
which is crazy and amazing that we can do that.
So
That was one of the things that got me initially into bodybuilding. I was so intrigued by all the celebrities that would like magically get in amazing shape for some movie. I was like, how do they do that?
yeah.
So that's kind of what got me started initially.
I can almost feel like you're reading my mind because I was about to ask you that too. I'm like, we're just on the same wavelength because I'm like, wait, now I'm wondering this. And then you said it, and I'm like, oh, which let's go back to that time. So you're 35 when you started,
Yeah,
right?
34.
And 34, 35, you're like, okay, I want to see what I can do, prep for a movie. But really, it was you wanted to kind of undergo that process. How did you find the NPC and then determine you want to get your IFBB Pro card and commit to this journey?
Yeah. So I'd always been an athlete. I never did like any of I was definitely a girly girl. Like I love glam and clothes and all of that, but I never took dance or anything. I was soccer and basketball and track and um I was always semi-fit. I would say I was skinny fat basically. I was always super into cardio, never lifted weights, which weights over cardio. But, now the thought of running is like, "Oh my gosh." I used to run like 13 miles every other day, and I don't even wanna run down the street now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had gotten into Muay Thai, and I loved it. I did it for about 8-ish months and was getting in really, really good shape like I
Sure.
hadn't been before. And I had a few people at the gym ask me if I had ever competed, and I had no idea what bodybuilding was, what it entailed. Um, I kind of got lucky with a family member was friends with a competitor, her coach was one of the top coaches in Utah. And so I reached out to him, and that's what got me started. So I didn't have to kind of weed through bad coaches at first, which I was really lucky with. I've had 3 amazing coaches so far, but I won my first show, not in open, but in masters, and then went the national circuit. And I have always sort of felt like in every area of my life, I was just mediocre at everything. And with the feedback I was getting, I was kind of like, I could really do this. Like I could become a pro. I could excel at something. And so I went for it. I wanted it bad.
Wow. So it was like this feeling of, I have something I can excel in, I can accomplish. You believed in yourself, but did you ever have people who were doubting you or your ability to succeed?
Definitely. Not necessarily, never physique wise. But one of the things I've had to um that I've experienced is people close to me not liking that I bodybuild, not necessarily supporting it to the level that I would have hoped, which has been a little difficult. But they don't understand. A lot of people think it's very egotistical. We're up there like half naked, showing off our bodies. Um, but as a competitor, like it's not sexualized, at least in my opinion. When I go watch a show when I'm not competing, we're looking at every single muscle and critiquing it, which bodybuilding has kind of ruined my view on the physique, because now when I look at people are like, well, if it's a woman, I'm like, she does not have any glutes, or a guy, it's like they really need to build their back. Like,
Yeah.
and for the majority of the population, they may have great physiques, but we're kind of crazy that way as bodybuilders.
Just like we can identify like macros on a plate and
Yes.
pretty much be spot on, or look at some like bodybuilding has changed my abilities. Like I can look at someone and be like, "Oh, they're about this much in weight." Like I
Right.
know
Yes.
they probably
Yeah.
weigh this much.
Yeah.
But I never had that ability before
Yeah.
competing. And then similarly, like going to a bodybuilding show as a competitor, especially, or someone
Yeah.
interested in it, you definitely start looking at physiques and bodies differently. Even like you said, in day-to-day life, you're able to identify like, the development of this area of their body isn't as strong as maybe this one. And it's
Yeah.
not even like a knock on the
Yeah. No.
physique or their health or anything. It's just
Yeah.
that's you're conditioned to believe or to find that. So you associate a body with that type of criteria.
Yeah. And one of the things that I would suggest people starting out, amateurs, is first of all, what's your goal? And if your goal is to go pro or Olympia, whatever it is, like you got to study the best of the best, watch videos of them over and over and over. And I think a lot of times at local shows, they don't know what's on the national stage. And I may go to one, and I'm sitting there thinking like, did they even start prep? Like, un- unfortunately, you kind of have to look like you're dying
Yeah,
if
especially
you're gonna
now.
if you're gonna be ready for the national stage. So like, I guess seeking out what your goal is, and then focusing in on how they got there, and the coaching, and really diving into it. I remember I used to take screenshots of competitors that were around my size that were pretty close to my physique, because you don't want to compare completely different physiques, like that does you no good.
You can't compare like a Ivy to a Masa.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there were a few girls that were about my same physique, same size, height, weight, and I would literally screenshot their picture and draw straight lines like where their shoulder cap was and for versus down to their glute and like being that precise
Mm.
and really looking at the nitty gritty. One of my favorite tips that I always give out at seminars that I like to tell competitors is to turn on YouTube when you're posing and like pull on a former national show like USA's or something and pretend that you are up on the stage and listen to Sandy's voice or Tyler's voice, whoever the judge is. And it really gives you an idea of how long you have to hold that pose for and listen to the cues of when you're supposed to walk to the back or turn around. And it kind of gives you that real life experience.
That is great advice. I remember, maybe it was you. I remember hearing that advice or learning that advice, and I started doing that, and it was like amazing because you really do get more of the pace of the show, even as an experienced competitor.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
it can help so much, especially like if you're watching a national show live, even and you're not there, but you have the live stream, like do it with the live stream because it's that real time. You kind of get your blood pumping a little bit, that adrenaline, like that having, even if it is a YouTube video that's already recorded, there is an essence of adrenaline that's happening
Yeah.
because you don't know when they're going to say it. You don't know what they're going to say. You can pretend you're one of the girls on stage and you got to switch. Like, I think that's such, especially if you can't attend an in-person posing workshop, let's say every weekend or every month or every couple months, that's a great alternative.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be extremely helpful for getting that feeling that when you're on stage for sure. One of the other things that I think is really crucial for competitors is that you listen to the judges' feedback. And, it's we don't ever like to be criticized. No one likes that feeling, but it's kind of weird that we're like, please tell me what's wrong with my body.
Right.
If you want to succeed, you have to listen to their feedback. And also choose your shows very strategically. A lot of people will just, pick a show out of the calendar or whatever, and I've always like to do a warm-up show, and the warm-up show is strategic. Whatever show you're going to, if it's North Americans or something, Tyler's judging, go do a warm-up show that Tyler's going to be judging because he's going to judge you in a month or 6 weeks whenever that is. So you want his feedback. So to do that and get in front of the judge that's going to be wherever you're hoping to go, it's universe, North Americans, whatever that is. I went to NorCal a couple times because Sandy was judging a few weeks before universe. And so it's helpful to get their feedback then so you can make the changes.
These are the types of tips that I think most competitors at the beginning of their journey don't get to hear. And what I think is so important and amazing that you're sharing, because it's the type of insight that can, I think, really change the trajectory of a competitor's experience. Like if I could go back in time and be like, Celeste, don't do that many shows. Just, step off stage and go grow, please.
Yeah.
Like it's so funny, like some competitors will be like, oh, they only did 3 shows and they went pro. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'd rather that in some cases because I've done 13 shows, but I probably shouldn't have done the majority of those shows.
Yeah.
And I think being strategic is so important, especially when the goal is to go pro and you are competing at a national level. So, um, you're also really involved in the industry, which I think is a beautiful thing. And I'm wondering if getting involved has maybe provided you insight that you didn't have before you were involved too.
Oh, definitely. it's such an amazing community, and there's so many different avenues that you can be involved in, whether you're coaching or doing posing or planning seminars. I'm planning my second one here in Utah, and it's so fun to give back, and you can also create a job out of it, and um, maybe someday have your own show, be your own,
Yeah.
be a promoter, whatever it is that you want to do. And there's always an avenue in bodybuilding if that's your passion. If you want to be involved with supplements or fashion, there's something, and I love that about it. It's the world is your oyster when it comes to bodybuilding.
Exactly, and it's people like, for me, I love it because it's like, I love these people. I love the athletes, I love the competitors, I love the energy. So, like, me doing what I do, whether it's the podcast or it's the mental health or it's the speaking, like, it's so rewarding because I'm like, I get to do what I love for the people that I love.
Yes, exactly. And finding, I don't have regrets ever. I kind of wish I would have found bodybuilding sooner,
Mm,
but I'll shift my perspective on that and say I'm just glad I found it. So many
mm,
people are lost in the world and have never found their passion.
yeah.
So I'm just grateful that I found it. And I wasn't too old. I can still compete.
And that's the other cool thing about competing is, like, now there's really not a too old. Like,
I
there's
know.
so
Yeah.
many amazing, like, yeah, it's just incredible the opportunities, and I think getting involved, if it but also important to note, if you don't feel called to be involved in the industry, don't feel like it's a prerequisite to your success in it either as an athlete. Because I think some people feel like, some of the people I've talked to, they'll say, like, they feel this pressure to get involved. Like, I gotta go do tanning, I gotta go do expediting, I gotta go to these, I have to start a coaching business. You don't have to do any of that. You can do your life and
Yeah.
compete, and that's enough too.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely can. It is it is good to get your face out there. The more times those judges see you, they remember you, then you come across that stage and it's like, "Oh yeah, I saw her. It's so and so at whatever show," or and then they remember your physique. So
Yes,
it's
agree.
good to be on their minds.
Yeah, and it's good to support the industry too. Like,
Yes.
if you can attend seminars, if you can attend workshops, if you can attend your local shows as well to show that support,
Mhm.
that goes a long way for the sport, the promoters, the
Yes. Mhm.
athletes.
And even expediting, like giving out trophies, more time on stage. If like being up on the
Yeah.
elevated platform is scary, go do trophies, and you get to be up there for hours and hours and hours, and the lights are on you, and you're like looking down at the judges, but they're not judging you, but you get to experience the feeling of being up on the stage. So there are advantages for sure.
Right. Yeah. And also, I think you get to kind of like in any sport, like when you coach a sport or you're involved in a sport, you attend the sport, you learn more than when you just play it. So it's like attending a show will give you more insight, or being involved in the industry will give you more insight that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yes, and surrounding yourself with people that are better than you
Mm,
is something that I have always lived by. I want to go train with the best and be coached by the best. And um, my friend circle, we all have really high aspirations. I want to rise as high as I can, and I want to be surrounded by people that are doing the same thing.
yes. I think too, then you're not surrounded by a bunch of limited mentalities. So there's no crab basket happening. Instead, it's like everyone's just
Yeah,
pulling each other up.
yeah, yeah. Because it's easy to be surrounded by people that are like, it's fine, just cheat on your diet today, you
Right.
know, don't do everything you're supposed to, you'll be fine. So surround yourself by people that are gonna push you. That's how you're gonna grow. That's how you're gonna get better. and place better and achieve the goals that you're striving so hard for.
Absolutely. I think also if you are in a limited mentality circle, don't be afraid to be the one who helps pull people out of
Yes,
it and says,
exactly.
actually, you can be
Yeah,
better than that. I
yeah,
see that you can be, and here's
yeah.
how.
Yeah, and not give into temptation when you're in those friend circles, so our whole worlds, all of our celebrations are based around food, and
Mhm.
you can go to a party or a family gathering and have a lot of fun and not eat the food.
Yep.
It's eating the birthday cake or whatever it is not a prerequisite to how much fun you have when you're there. Um, I some people like to kind of get in a hole when they compete and when they're on prep, and I think for longevity purposes, that's not necessarily the best, because you have to be able to live life and especially with kids, I have to make them. I don't have to, but I enjoy making them cookies and a few Thanksgivings ago, I was like 2 weeks out from a show, and I was in charge of the appetizer table, like, placing everything
Yeah.
and not giving in to the it was Thanksgiving, everyone's eating it. Well,
Yeah.
I can enjoy Thanksgiving and eat my prepped food still, you know?
Exactly.
Some people may roll their eyes and, to each their own, but you're gonna
Right.
accomplish the goal.
That's exactly right. I think that's so important. And we can showcase like the importance of following through on your goals and also in an improvement season being able to showcase like the value of maybe a bit more food flexibility without sacrificing those goals still. So I think there's so many opportunities to lead by example in that way and to support yourself and your goals and continuously improve. But you bring up a great point too. You're also a mom and
Mhm.
you're a single mom. So how do you navigate this now? Like, how do you manage your schedule? What about, like, maybe you don't have to answer this, but how do you manage dating or how's your view on relationships been impacted because of this change?
It's hard being a single mom and competing. You have to be willing to make it work somehow. That's one of my mottos is I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. Ask for help, you know, get babysitters if you need to if they're young. I was never a morning person, but I get up at 4 a.m. now to train and at 3:45 on check-in morning so I can take my pictures to go. So and then I'm going to train and then coming back and fixing breakfast and doing school drop off and then going to work, and you have to just schedule really precisely and figure out a way to get it in. And where there's a will, there's a way. You can't use it as an excuse at all. I hope I know my kids are getting a little older. They're 11 and 13. And I know there have been times where they probably think, bodybuilding takes mom away from me or my time. But I hope when they get older that they look back and see the hard work and the dedication and the resilience, and mom never gave up, and she also was an individual. I'm not just mom, I'm
Yeah.
Tanya, and I have dreams and aspirations, and I don't want to give those up. I want to teach my son and my daughter to reach for the stars and work their asses off until they get it. We can dream and hope and manifest, but if there's no action, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
You have to do the work.
I love hearing what you hope for your kids and how you can lead by example in that way and use competing as an opportunity to showcase that exact thing. And I think we all as kids like view certain things our parents do selfishly, right? Because their mom, their dad. But then
Yeah,
yeah,
we
we
don't
get
have to
older and we're
be
like, yeah, right. We're like, wait a minute. I think that's a really cool thing, and it's a great reminder to pursue your goals. And I know we're kind of coming close on time, and I have enjoyed so much of the advice you've given. It's been amazing, but I want to hear if you have any more advice. What would be your best advice for someone who has never competed before but wants to, and then your best advice for somebody who's on their road to pro?
For the person that's never competed, I would say figure out what your goal is and seek out the best of the best. Learn from the best. Surround yourself with the best. Do what they do. Emulate everything that they do. Um, and then on the road to pro, never give up. You got to do it scared. You have to be resilient and remember you've always got more in you. So go find it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that point that you have more in you, so go find it. That's so good. Like that's gonna be my golden nugget from this. So how can people follow your journey, connect with you, and yeah, see what's next for you?
On Instagram, Tanya Jo Bikini Pro. Um, Come find me there. DM me. I'm an open book, so I can't share all the nitty gritty details on here, but come talk to me if you see me in person or on Instagram, and I'm happy to tell more of my story, what I've experienced, and I'm just like everyone else, I feel like I fail sometimes, feel like I need to be doing more. But we all try our best, and if you need a friend out there, I'm happy to be your friend.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. It's that true genuine desire to support and connect and be that friend. Like we talked about how valuable that is in the industry and that ability to be vulnerable. So I love that you're opening that up for people. So you guys let us know what you thought about the episode. Tag us or DM Tanya, tell her what you took away from it. I know that goes a long way, not just for me, but for the athletes. Like they care so much. They love when they hear about the impact of their story. So definitely reach out. And with all that being said, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.